Man, oh man, am I excited to talk about this one. This is probably my favorite catalog. It's my 1972 Tom Mann's Baits and How to Fish 'em catalog from the Mann's Bait Company. So why don't we just go ahead and take a look inside. Now, first you'll notice this is a smaller catalog right here. It's about the size of your hand. So it's kind of a little pocket catalog. But we'll jump in here and we'll see what's inside. On the first page here, we see Tom Mann's facility right here, and this is what it would have looked like back in 1972. He goes on to explain that this has grown from a kitchen operation to a now 50 square foot modern air-conditioned plant. And really for 72, that probably is pretty modern. And you can see that building that does look very 70s right there. Here's Tom Mann, and then here's his wife, Ann Mann. I love that name. He goes on, I'm not going to explain this whole thing, but he goes on to say that after a couple of years in the service, he came back, worked for a sporting goods store, and then went on to work for a lure manufacturer where he kind of honed in his skills. And then after that, he went to go work for the conservation department in Alabama. He then took a year leave of absence and then just focused all of his time into the Tom Mann Lure Company. And so we'll jump in here and see what kind of lures we got. Starting with what is easily my favorite bait from Tom Mann is the Mann's jelly worm right here. And what's interesting, and I just learned from reading this catalog, is that Ann Mann was actually the one that came up with the colors/flavors of these worms. And what's cool is they actually baked in the flavor to the worm. And the reason they did that is, let's say you're working on your boat motor and you get a little oil or gas or something on there, or maybe you had a Reuben sandwich for lunch, I don't know, whatever the case is, and then you go on to bait your hook. Okay, when you do that, you may be getting some of those oils in the worm, which would detract the bass. So by baking in these flavors, that would actually attract the bass and they would hold on longer. And that oil that's inside all the packaging would help as well too. So that's why they did that. It's not just for colors, it's actually a flavor as well for the bass. And we're going on to the next page here, and you can see all the different variations. So at this time in 72, they had 15 different ones. And obviously throughout the 70s, they just became a lot more popular and they had a lot more colors. So back then you could have got a $1 pack there, and it looks like you could have got the 3 and 4 inch, 12 packs for $1. And then if you wanted a 9 inch, it's 5 for $1 or something like that. And while we're at it, why don't we look at a couple examples of the jelly worm? So I'm going to start off right here. And this is a pretty good example. Now this right here would be a grape color, and you can see right there it's faded, but it says grape. And this would have been a couple of years later, because this says it's the 1973 Miller High Life Bassmaster Classic Winter worm. But very cool. I mean, they still got just great texture to them. They have not dried out. Just a phenomenal worm. Great colors. I'm trying to get some of that good incandescent coloring, right? That's perfect. There you go. So you can see that purple right there. Really cool. Here's another one too. I'm going to guess you're probably not going to have this as an actual flavor, if you will. This is more of just the color, but this is motor oil. But you get to see a really good example of what these worms look like. I mean, the quality of these are outstanding. Just a phenomenal soft plastic worm. I mean, they just do not make them this nice anymore. Okay, let's look at one more real quick as well too. And this one is a pretty cool $1 pack. And this is from later on in the 70s. And you can tell that because it has this orange fire tail, if you will. But you got a blueberry color. It's that real deep blue right there. And another one that says 1973 Miller High Life Bassmaster Classic Winter. Just phenomenal looking soft plastic bait here. Now this is when it starts getting real fun, folks. I love the next couple pages. First, let's take a look at these bulk packs. How much would you love to get your hands on 100 pack of old school jelly worms? I mean, you can get the 6 inch for $12 for 100? Man, I love that. That's just so cool. These next few pages are probably some of the coolest soft plastics I've ever seen. Different, unusual. I love them. Starting with the twin-tailed tadpole. It's got 2 kind of legs with the flip tail on it, with kind of a larger head. I mean, I can just imagine the action in the water that these baits have. I mean, really, really cool. I've never seen these. New for 72. This is my favorite of the whole catalog right here. The Jelly Dog. Another new one for 72. Well, I might be a little biased. I don't know if that'll focus in or not. That looks like Bass and Burt. I love it. But what this is, I mean, it kind of looks like a lizard with a really, really long tail. And so basically what he said is at a certain time of year, bass love to feed on natural foods like lizards and water dogs, etc. And so he came up with this unique design. And what I love best is these packs are packs of four different colors. That is so cool. I'm looking all over eBay for this. I got to get one of those. Super, super cool. Love that. And then here, we have another finesse type. Could be more of a crappie or, like I've mentioned before, Ned type style of lure. We've got the jelly shrimp tail. Really cool. I love this. I mean, I swear I've seen other bait companies recently within the last few years come out with baits that look exactly like this. But I got to get my hands on these jelly dogs. Other than the jelly worm, I think the other bait that put Tom Mann on the map was probably the Little George. And essentially what it is just a little tailspin lure. And so he had other variations back in the 70s. He had the Super George. I think he had like a large George or whatever else too. And they had all sorts of different colors here. But you can still buy this bait today. And in fact, this is a new one from Bass Pro Shop. Very effective little bait. Good for bass, good for white bass, good for... crappie, whatever, but just a very effective, small, simple little bait, which, was very popular back in the day and still is today. Moving on, we have here, this is the Fat Albert, and the Fat Albert is, looks like it's new for 72 here, and this is his line of crankbaits. And as Tom Mann goes on, he's got more. So this is the Minnow lure right here. And you can see that's more of a deep diving crankbait. He didn't have this for 72, but that's another one he had. He had the Deep Hog. I've got plenty of these, but just for the sake of time, I'm just going to show you a couple of them. But here's a Deep Hog. This is 20 plus feet. Jeez Louise. That's a tank. That's probably more for trolling, stripers, stuff like that. Just as they are today, these small little grubs, more or less these little Ned baits, were just as popular back in the 70s as they are today. I think a lot of people like to say there's kind of this, newer, form of fishing called, Ned fishing or whatever else, but this has been around forever. And you can see it clear as day here in 1972. Although I like the colors on these a lot better. And you can still find some of these colors today, maybe like Robo Worm or something like that. But you can see, what does that look like to you? If you look at this, that is a Ned setup. All it is just a jig head with a little plastic, it could be anything from a stick bait to whatever this grub is right here, sticking upright, and then the bass is going to go crazy for it. They've got these dollar packs right here, and he's got a bunch of different colors. But it looks like for these baits, he actually does have the different colored tails, and he doesn't do that with the larger baits until a few years down the line. But these are pretty neat. I like these little grubs. Very effective. Moving on, we've got the Woolly Bullies here, and this is more or less kind of like your Bass Buster type spinner baits, kind of your small little spinners. You've got some with the soft plastic, some with skirts. You've got a couple here with, a few different of the spinner blade options. Really cool. I love this one, this Fire Red. That is just a really neat color you don't see a whole lot of, but just very simple too. Black, white, fire red, yellow, purple, green. There's no like bluegill or green pumpkin or clown or whatever else. These are just very simple, colors. Moving on. What do we got here? Oh, this is a really cool one. The Razorback. And I'm gonna put a little picture. I don't know, whatever. I'll just pop it in. But this is a really, really cool bait, and this is kind of evolved. So this is new for 72 as well too, and he's just got a couple of these colors, but a lot of them have the black back, and they have more of the kind of pearl or shad type color. You got one here that's yellow and black, but that's probably more of a chartreuse. Well, maybe it is more yellow. It looks more chartreuse than this, but just a really neat little bait. And then here's some spoons over on this other side. Well, let me show you kind of what these evolved into later on into the 70s. So this is what the Razorback kind of turned into. And you can see from the beginning, it looks like more of a lipless. But if you look here, this is obviously, more of a square bill. But you can see right there, it's got Mann's stamped in there, almost like the Cordell do, and it says Razorback. They've obviously got more aggressive in the styling too. And then here's another one as well too. It looks like it's missing some of the paint at the bottom, but just a really cool old school square bill. But this is as the Razorback evolved. This is what it looked like. And then as you keep evolving, he had other backs. He had all sorts of backs in the late 70s. And another one was the Hackleback. And this is one too where you've got some kind of, rigid fin here, a little bit more of a deep diver as well. I've got a lot of these. I love these. I should crank one of these out and just go for it. But really neat lure. Yeah, just a super, super cool kind of evolution of the original Razorback right here. Also, his spoons. I think they just called them the Mannow lure back in the day, but I think they just said 10 plus. This is the same thing, just a very heavy spoon, but the quality of the spoon is fantastic. I mean, just it looks like kind of the forged metal right there. I mean, just a really, really good quality spoon. So probably very effective. I bet in the wintertime, and especially if you're going for striper, or if you're going for something that's going to be, way down deep, that's probably would be a good one. So, all right, as we move on, now we're, kind of back at the jigs again. I mean, these are about as, simple as it gets. This is more for crappie, but you got, once again, all these really cool colors, you don't see a whole lot of, especially like this crazy blue is really neat. You may see some of these pinks and stuff, especially for crappie fishing, but that purple, that fire red. Then you got the standard stuff, the white, the yellow. I mean, those are all ones that have just been around since the dawn of time. Since people have been crappie fishing, they've been using whites and yellows. Just really good, effective colors. Okay, I've mentioned this before. I'm going to find one of these. I have to find one of these. This might be a Christmas present to myself. I don't know. We'll see if I can get one it's not breaking the bank too much, but the Frogman. Once again, another lure for 72. 72 must have been a pretty hot year for Tom Mann. These are insanely cool, but they're so expensive on eBay, especially if you can get them in the box, and that's kind of really the only way that I buy them, or if they're in the original box for the most part. But just a good little topwater. It's got two hooks here, one at the bottom, one at the back. It's got a prop, and then you just tie it up, and you just, more or less cast it out there, and then reel it back in, and the prop kind of goes and causes a stir in the water, and it's just a pretty, I would say almost a pseudo-advanced lure for the time, but I love these. Just a really cool, topwater frog. But we've got these right here. This is probably going to be more for your saltwater fishing. We have spinner blade replacements. We have the jelly worm grubs for your little spinners. And then here's a new one too. And this looks just like a little beetle spin, or maybe a little bass buster or something like that. Just a little spinner. That's, super simple, very effective. Here's his weights, his jig heads, an arrowhead. I've never seen those before. That's pretty cool. That's a neat one. He's got some patches and decals here. And this is really neat. I like this a lot. And it really just shows, how dedicated he was to his customers. So right here, clear as day. If you need to get a hold of somebody, here's who we've got working for us. But he's got the sales representatives for all the different districts. So my district would be 7. And so my person is right out of Lee Summit, which is just a suburb in Kansas City. So pretty close to where I live. So that's pretty cool. But they've got, dedicated sales rep for each part of the region if you got any questions. But here's the circle, the personnel directory right here, all the people that are kind of in charge of Mann's Bait Co. at the time. So you have Tom Mann, you have Ann Mann. Look at this guy down here. Larry Colombo, Public Relations. I love his name, Larry Colombo. He should get his own TV show. Let's see here. Then you have, some receptionists there, purchasing, and then you have Don Mann, which is the general manager And I wonder if that's maybe Tom's brother or something. So pretty cool. I like that. I think that's neat that you get to kind of see what the districts are. And, you know, I wonder, you know, if these people are still around, what they're doing. You know, if they have a little bait shop somewhere or what. But really cool. A neat little kind of slice of yesterday. So, and then finally here at the back, how do you fish it? So it goes into a guide here of the jelly worm, the George, the woolly bully, you know, all these different baits. And it's just a neat little catalog here. And then here at the end, we've got, if you want more information on methods of fishing and casting and things like that, Tom Mann's got a little book out here for $3.95. So pretty cool stuff. You know, and as Tom Mann progressed, he had some pretty cool baits, in the 80s. So then we get into things like the Pogo Shad, which is a really cool little bait. I like this one a lot. Just a neat little, let's see if we can get that one kind of zoomed in. I don't know why they ever got rid of this, to be honest with you. I think that's a pretty effective little bait. The Mann's Hardworm. What's not to love about this right here? First off, the advertising is outstanding. It's totally for the time. You got the action shot of the hardworm right here. You got Tom Mann's face in the background. Just very cool. I mean, this is artwork right here, folks. And then here's the actual lure itself. And it's kind of a jerk bait, but with that flip tail in the back like you'd see on a jelly worm. These are getting a little bit harder to find. You can still get them on eBay. But just a pretty cool little worm, or hard plastic lure. I mean, whatever you want to call it. It's neat. It's gimmicky. I had to have it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, taking a look back at this 1972 Mann's Bait and How to Fish It catalog. I love looking at these. It's just a fun way to kind of see, a little glimpse into the past, if you will. So until next time, guys, we'll see you in the water. So in the last video, I made a quick comment about this guy right here. Larry Colombo, public relations for Tom Mann's Bait Company. Well, I didn't think too much of it. I just thought, hey, this guy's got an awesome name. And I wanted to figure out, well, who was he? Was he a pro fisherman? What's his story? I Googled him, probably not thinking I would find too much about him or whatever else. Come to find out, Larry was actually inducted into the Fresh Fishing Hall of Fame last year in 2020. Who would have thought? And not anybody can just get into that. You have to be in the industry for quite some time. You have to make a pretty big impact. It's not about what you catch, it's about what you're doing for the industry. So he worked for Mann's Bait Co. for a little while, and then went over and worked for Humminbird for, 30 some odd years. I'm going to put the article down below. But as the story goes, in the early 70s, he went down to Eufaula to go fish with Tom Mann every couple years. Well, while he was down there, Ray Scott approached him and offered him a job to go work for BASS. And we know that old Ray Scott and Don Butler worked together. Here's the SOV bug. So he thought, heck yeah, that sounds like a great opportunity. So he goes to Tom and he goes, Tom, will you give me a reference to go work for BASS? And Tom said, no, because you're going to come work for me. So long story short, I guess he decided, hey, I'm going to go work for Tom Mann's Bait Company. Did that for a few years, then obviously went over to Humminbird after that. But apparently Larry is a big deal down in Alabama. In fact, they call it the Colombo Connection down there. Apparently he knows everybody, and he's fished with everyone from Bobby Knight to Joe Namath and all sorts of other sports celebrities kind of in between. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. It's just kind of amazing what a little catalog like this can discover. So again, thanks for watching. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the water.